Notes rip. I couldn't go on holidays without getting some thoughts out and at least jumping in a draft. And if I was going to jump in a draft, I was like, may as well stream it. Neumy may or may not be joining in a minute here. I know everybody was thinking this was going to be Neumy at night, Neumy after dark. And then I pulled a fast one on you guys and just showed up on my lonesome. But we're going to go ahead, jump in this and talk through some of it on the fly. So if you guys want to jump in, go ahead. I am doing it right off the hop. 15 USD. Just reading some of the stuff on Twitter, man, like really well received contest thus far. I mean, I love it. I love the structure of it. A lot of discourse about like ones at the onesies and stuff like this. My thought goes back to the daily slates, right? And the daily slates were the weeks where Justin Fields was popping off and you got the big rushing floor, you got the spike week potential coupled with a big rushing floor. Just felt like, hey, he's going to be the 101 for the entirety of the week, right? Same thing with Travis Kelce, that combo. So like my first thought was Kelce 101. Whether that's right or not, I have no idea. But I think it's all a risk tolerance exercise here, because I think the common meta to start is going to be ones at the onesies, and then you shotgun everything else. And then what that's going to create is like crazy dense chalk and underdrafted quarterbacks, right? So then the flip to that, I'm thinking, if we push it one step further, we'll be like full punt at quarterback and tight end, and then just use your last 6 picks to go 3 and 3, something like that. Because we're looking for unique paths to winning a week, right? And optimizing for 1 week within like a calendar of 17 playable weeks feels really bad. So I think you're going to want to give yourself scattered shotgun approach to hitting multiple weeks. And in doing so, I think that would be Eagles goes ahead and takes Kelce right there. It creates a weird dynamic, right? Because the outlying spike weeks of these high profile elite wide receivers cannot be matched by some other players in the field, right? The Jamar Chase, the Jeffersons. But if you just piece together and Frankenstein an isolated player, like through patchwork, I'm thinking it's easier to do that at the skill positions than it is at the onesies. And yeah, I don't know. These are like the ideas that were just kind of like off the cuff running through my head here. I was trying not to read too much or think of like other people's stuff, because I didn't want to just kind of regurgitate other people's opinions when I started thinking about this. Obviously the bye week stuff is huge, right? I have the bye weeks pulled up here. The bye week stuff is huge because I think people are going to go, hey, week 7 is more winnable than say week 4. But I'm not sure that's actually true. There's cleaner paths to winning for sure. Like there's definitely like a more concrete blueprint to winning week 7 than week 4, but everybody knows that, right? So maybe there's some merit to flipping the mindset of week 7 and stacking a bunch of these week 7 teams together, like putting Titans and Texans together, punting week 7, playing 16 weeks through those teams, and then hoping that people won't want to stack the bye week. So I think the bye week bro narrative works one of 2 ways, right? You can either go, hey, week 17 and week 13 are the most attackable, right? I don't know. You could do it that way, or you can do it, hey, stack the bye weeks together, and then, stack the bye weeks together, and then you're instantly unique from a mantra standpoint. It's very interesting. Anyways, I'm just going to keep riffing and going with this. I'll put on some tunes saying what up to everybody who's in here. Oaks is in here. Yeah, I mean, like, honest to God, this is this feels okay, but I think you kind of want to do the shotgun approach at running back too, because I think everybody's mind is going to go like 1, 3, 1, 14, something like that. Maybe there's some merit in just going like 1, 8, 8, 1 and taking a bunch of backups, right? There's also in my mind, I was kind of thinking backup quarterbacks are going to play really well too. Because if you treat this like, hey, I have a bunch of bullets and I'm just going to like play through a storytelling narrative, well, how about you stack Ravens and let's just use Miami because it's week 17, it's top of mind. So you stack that game environment and then you just go, hey, how about Tyler Huntley? Right? Like maybe I don't need Lamar in this. And that's the differentiating piece. Anyways, there's a lot of cool ways to think through because there's so much volatility in the NFL. There's so much volatility in the schedule, and there's so much stuff that we think about that we think we definitively know right now, but won't matter in the future. Another common, I'm gonna do two things here. I am gonna go ahead and drop on a little background tunage. Let me know if this is too loud or not. I'm not feeding the ducks. That's Pete's jam. I'll play off Neumy2's favorite stuff with the night drive in here. Get some vibes going. And then here, sounds of summer because we're going on a boat in about an hour. Sounds of summer, baby. Okay, we're about to be on the clock here. This guy timed out. What's going on here? If anyone was having trouble finding this, Rudman commented something in our Discord there. But if you're having trouble finding this contest on mobile, just go ahead and update your app. You got to force yourself to update it. I forced myself to update it. I might do... Okay. I'm thinking through this. I think I'm going to do Josh Allen here and just play this as a naked quarterback team and maybe stack them once with like Gabe Davis or like Kincaid or Knox, and that'll be that. But I'm thinking this is going to be a solo quarterback and like 3 tight end kind of team. Let's see. Anyways, okay, I wrote down some stuff. One thing for me is searching for spike weeks and spike weeks within the same searching for spike weeks and spike weeks within the same division and or team stack and or whatever is so much more important than closing line value. I kind of think closing line value just isn't a thing in this contest. It could be a thing in like the first 3 rounds in terms of like finding some weird combinations that will never exist in the future or getting ahead of that. But I don't think it matters as much as like the field will give it credit. We're going to go anchor Henry here. Also thinking through archetypes of players. Bundling players that have like secure jobs early, because the more we know, okay, how do I articulate the most we know about football right now is week 1, and the closer we get to week 1, the more we'll know about football, right? Like that, it sounds so fucking stupid, right? It sounds so simplistic. It sounds like a toddler could say that, but I think it really needs to be articulated, because closing line value in this contest, like in BBM right now in this window, we're effectively only searching for closing line value, right? We're searching for the ability to have extreme outlying rosters over the totality of the season. Right now, I'm searching for usable weeks in the front end of like week 1 and then letting the chips fall where they may, right? Anyways, I think the thought process with this start is kind of like Henry, I'm going to make divisional stacks with. Like, that's just my thing that I'm going to target here. I think I'm going to target that Houston one. But that being said, Henry's projectable volume is best early in the season, and those divisional matchups and stuff aren't till late in the season. And the risk of injury to certain players and certain archetypes, especially high usage ones like Henry, lend itself to falling off later in the season. So playing for later in the year is like a really tricky slope unless you optimize the entirety of your roster to play for later in the year. That's my initial thought process. So taking a guy like Henry makes a lot of sense because the projectable volume's there and he could smash early in the year. That being said, all the nice cushy spots that we want to utilize them for are actually later in the year. So yeah. Let's see. People are popping off here. Do you see yourself entering more of this versus BBM? I really like the structure of the contest. I think this is my favorite structure of a contest I've seen. That being said, it introduces a lot of variance, but that's just like, for me personally, I love the combination of DFS and best ball. And that's why I think I've gravitated so heavily to the BRs. And this contest represents like a perfect merge of that for me personally. So I'm still going to do both, and I'm still going to get a lot of BBM. But I do really like this, and I do find myself really wanting to solve this problem. Yeah, as we go. No, what are you saying here? Gabe's gone super early in the first few that he's done, just throwing that out there. I mean, it kind of makes sense because he fits that mold of better in best ball, and he has a guaranteed job, and he's tethered to an elite quarterback, right? So I might have to push that. What's the A word? What's the A word? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so like if we're making a roster of this magnitude where we have like established score early guys, I think you kind of want to just like keep leaning into that narrative. I might reach on Gabe. Maybe not yet. See, like ATN or Gibbs just doesn't feel great here. Like I want that division. You get the divisional stuff with Jacksonville. Let's do Christian Kirk. I like it better than doing ATN. And in an isolated week, like two running backs actually negatively correlate versus one another. It's a little bit different if it's a pass catching one. But so I kind of prefer to have the pass catcher on the other side if we're actually thinking through like the DFS style game theory of it. I do think it does put a premium on like the elite in quotation tight ends where you draw that line in the sand. That's the you thing. Interesting to see Eagles did the double tight end thing. So this was a common bully tight end practice that we saw in the daily streets. I really like that line of thinking. I'm trying to think through combinations that were like, so for those who didn't play the BRs with us last year, and when we were thinking through those contests, what would happen is contests would drop Monday night as soon as kickoff in the Monday Night Football for the following week, right? And all the sickos would be sitting there waiting for it. And you try and obtain these combos that were impossible before ADP like shaped up, right? I think I'm going to go ahead and take Kittle because I do really like this elite tight end narrative. Where you're basically never going to win a week in this contest by taking a zero at the tight end. So you have to at least have floor at the onesies. It doesn't always have to be perfect, and it doesn't always have to be perfect correlation because you can make up the point difference. If there was no outlying scoring player at the onesies, you can make it out by smashing the elite guys in the middle. That being said, you have to have floor at those positions, and like a guy like Kittle just represents that even more so than guys like Goddard, Pitts, blah, blah, blah. But to finish the thought, what would happen on those like good weeks with Lamar or good weeks with Kelsey or good weeks with whatever is you would try and pair Mahomes and Kelsey. You would try and pair Josh Allen and Diggs. You would try and pair Lamar and Mark Andrews, because as soon as ADP fixed itself by the end of the week, those combinations were never possible ever again. And there is a path to thinking that this contest, as ADP shapes itself, will turn into like 3 or 4 wide receivers off the board in the first 10 picks, 3 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, and 1 running back. So maybe locking up some of these like elite tandems now and having them in your portfolio, we think of them as chalk in BBM terms. They might be impossible later as the contest, fluctuates, right? I think naked Justin Fields, I put him on the cover because I think naked Justin Fields might be my favorite build type, period. Because when he goes off, it's basically through himself, and he doesn't necessarily drag anybody else along with him. We saw it for multiple weeks last week where Justin Fields was the quarterback you needed, and you basically needed nobody else with him except for Cole Kmet with him once last week. So if we just paint that narrative for an entirety of a season and just go naked Justin Fields, and that's just like the benchmark, like Justin Fields, 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick in this contest. Yeah, Fields with Kmet feels good, right? Picture this, yeah. Oh man. Oh wait, Neumy hanging out. He may as well hop on. Yeah, it's interesting because this draft looks very similar to like any board right now. Pull up a week 1 schedule here. Do something like the divisional stuff will matter, but reminder that week 18 isn't included. So if you do like, you think people are going to beat up on Arizona, well, Seattle's not going to beat up on Arizona because they can't. They can only do it once, right? Because that divisional matchup won't be included. So Xing out like some of these 18 matchups in your mind might be good practice as well. This Detroit KC has the highest total in week 1. Buffalo and the Jets. I'm just going to go ahead and take Gabe Davis. I just want that correlation for the entirety of forever. Buffalo's got Jets. Tennessee. I mean, there's definitely smarter ways to do this, and could have thought through it more than just like doing this on the fly and firing up a stream. But like, I think people are going to be like, hey, this is my week 9 build. And they're just going to start building week 9 and being like, oh, okay, Cincinnati versus Buffalo. Okay, build that out. I think if you want to throw like a shotgun approach at it and be like, hey, I'm kind of like live for every week. It's kind of what like I'm doing right now, where if you want to be like live for every week, you would have like a couple stacks. You'd have some safety net and floor at the tight end position, like we did with Kittle. Maybe it's like a 1-3 at running back and 3 at tight end, something like that. Because it takes a lot to beat like a 271,000 person field, right? But that being said, if you build rosters to kind of like give yourself outs at a top prize with like uniqueness pieces, you give yourself outs at a top prize, but then give yourself a little bit of floor. Like there is a way to play this as like a profitable endeavor and not just shooting the moon in every single isolated week and building out a 150 portfolio for every single isolated week. I'm going to take Pierce here. You could twist my arm into Goddard as well. Quentin Johnson's like the wrong profile, I think, for this. Yeah, like Quentin Johnson would be a guy that if I was building out a team with running backs that had like Breece Hall, that I was having like Jameson Williams and Addison and JSN, and putting all those kind of like spike later in the year guys on the same team. But I do like this thought process of like pairing two guys who face each other twice, even though there's slight negative correlation, but face each other twice. Both in theory will represent good matchups, and they both share a bye week, so people will be more apprehensive to pair them together. I do think that paints itself to a little uniqueness. Whether that's right or not, who the fuck do I know? I mean, yeah, I mean, like, this isn't a crazy idea. Like Clay saying Fields with Bob Tunyon, like having, we joke about it on showdown slates, like secondary tight ends who go off twice and score 2 touchdowns, right? Chip, I think they're just the same as BBM ADPs. I think that's where we're at right now. All right. Oh, yo, Neumy2's right here. Neumy, there we go. What's up?
What's good, brother?
Yo.
Saw that you were rambling. What are you drinking before you head on your boat?
A little local lager.
Ooh, love that. Yeah, I got stopped at home, so I have my local brewery's sour. It's a rhubarb sour.
Nice. Not a huge sour guy, but I get around with it. Hey, this is a good question. How many BRs had to chop? I wonder how many times 20K is split. That's actually a very good question because main BRs last year chopped. I can only think of one. I think it was week 3. Week 3 last year. Yeah. I
can go ahead and look for you. You keep going. You got the draft on you. I can maybe see if I can pull them together here because yeah. All right, we'll be able to pull that through. Yeah, because I thought there was a 1 or 2, and I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And about I had a couple questions literally wrote down to ask him. Like, well, if instead of asking him in chat, let me just waltz right in here and ask him. But that was literally one of them. Is dupes. Like, are you, with this being 18 rosters in best ball? Like, I'm just throwing dupes out the window. Like, I'm not worried about that at all, regardless of contest size. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing that's they're 18-person rosters, but you still only play 8. So if the 8 highest scorers are like the chalkiest scorers, dupes are definitely within the range of outcomes, right? I think it feels good to click James Cook here, even though he's like not my favorite of the bunch. I do think if you're building the thought process with this roster in my mind, now whether I'm executing it right or not, who the hell knows? But the thought process with this roster is I'm giving myself multiple week outs by being a little bit division focused and being pretty densely correlated around one offense that I think is going to be very good. I think that kind of gives me spike week potential and outs to multiple weeks. Now, is it better than isolating 1 week and being like, yo, we're just triple stacking this matchup? Like, if I just looked at the schedule, looked at week 9, saw that Buffalo in week 9 is at Cincinnati, and I was just like, yo, I'm all in on that. Is that a better strategy for winning a week than what I'm doing? Probably, but I don't definitively know, right?
So you're looking at a Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Dameon Pierce, James Cook, Cooper Kupp, Christian Kirk.
I might just do this.
Okay.
And we saw Evan Ingram take down 2 BRs back-to-back weeks last year with spike week performances at tight end that aren't readily available for a lot of players. He gets divisional correlation with both Tennessee and Houston here. We had that Jacksonville with Kirk there. You kind of make like a double bet. Tough needle to thread, though, because if you get stack happy with teams that you don't have the quarterback on, you need raw points on your roster to make up that quarterback difference, or else, because it's like a tough needle to thread if you were playing hypothetically week 4 and Jacksonville's offense explodes, right? And they get 4 touchdowns and Christian Kirk has 2 and Evan Ingram has 2. Well, you need enough raw points at quarterback to not just get passed by the teams that stacked Jags, right? So there is a little bit of like, don't get too stack happy outside of the ones that are with your quarterback, because you might be drawing dead.
Well, that answers that. I was going to ask you, that answers my next one, is because I know you came in here and you said earlier at this beginning of the show, you didn't come in reading much on Twitter and reading all that. You wanted to like have fresh thoughts and like I've been, I've been seeing people's thoughts in the Discord and like one of the biggest debates is overstacking versus understacking, you know what I mean? Or like, is overstacking viable or not? And like, in terms of like, all of a sudden we had just some people going back and forth, like, adding the negative correlation. Is it in fact positive correlation and whatnot? And like, basically, how much is too much? Like, are you going to add 4? You're going to add 5? Like, how much are you going to tack onto that quarterback? So, yeah. It's been that along with what you already touched with bye weeks, along with just finding like and being okay and not worried about that. Those have been the 2 like things I've seen the most and people kind of like honing in on right away.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, like some of the DFS principles I've been thinking about are like rushing quarterbacks and then backup onesie positions, right? Backup onesie position guys who will be like incredibly unique. If you like, it wouldn't be crazy to me to build a San Francisco stack and then pair it with Sam Darnold instead of pairing it with like Brock Purdy or taking both. You burn a roster spot, but you're basically only playing for the weeks that San Francisco explodes. Now there's probably only, 5 to 8 offenses in all of football that you would want to consider doing this with, but it's with it might be too galaxy brain, but I to win a 270,000 person contest in an isolated week, you're going to have to do something crazy and score some crazy unique points that other people do not, right?
Yeah, so far we're on week 7 and week 6, and we haven't had a dupe for first. We've had a dupe for second.
Oh, okay.
In week 6 so far. There
was a dupe for first because it was Texas.
No, there was 100%.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to load.
DFX Texas, because he came on the show after, and he had a dupe for first. I'm fairly certain. There's also a lot of thoughts going on in my mind right now about shit. I wasn't mentally prepared for this pick. Let's double down on Buffalo running backs.
Ooh, now give me your thoughts here. I want to know your thought, because this has been the thing that we haven't been able to get. I'm trying to not add as much, being able to hear your thoughts and what you're talking through. Talk me through that pick. And I know it's kind of a frantic pick and you weren't really you know what I mean?
No,
it might have been something different, but talk me through it.
I think it's just like smashing outs to Buffalo that not everyone will have in a given week.
Are you doing that on offensive, just like Buffalo, Philadelphia, Chargers, Chiefs? Like, you're only doing that on that. Like, and
I'll consider doing it on some weirder ones too, like that I don't think other people are getting to. Like Seattle onslaughts would be a lot of fun.
Okay, so I'd do like a Kenneth
Vikings
Walker and
ones.
Zach, and like Zach Charbonnet. Okay.
Yeah, it might be burning a roster spot though. It might actually be. We will. I don't know. I'll think through it more. I got a couple more notes that I want to hit on too.
I guess it depends, but yeah.
I think of. I also think like ADP doesn't matter at all, because in the same thing as because like closing line value doesn't matter as much and total points don't matter. I'm just looking for points in given weeks and like what's the difference of Alec Pierce versus Taekwon Thornton, like for just one isolated week.
This is a great thing to bring up, because this brings me to two of my next questions, which were basically, you pointed out you don't feel closing line value is important, which I was kind of in the proponent with earlier in today's show when we were talking about it. And do you feel like there's any advantage to doing a slow draft to potentially doing a slow draft even later, to where you're going to have the most information possible, like I was talking about, like, and you're going to be able to really think through these picks and really have like and you could literally milk it, because it in a sense, and not saying you even have to milk it, but also then, do you feel in that same vein, just doing drafts later and having the most information and then be able to pull off these moves is more valuable because of the closing line value not mattering? Then what's the point of
I would say the reason in drafting BBM right now is you're getting like crazy unique combinations, gives you a path to first that might not be available later, blah blah blah, right?
Yep.
The biggest difference in this contest is, I think, knowing matters most, right? Definitively knowing role usage, all this sort of thing matters most. And I think if you really wanted to take this contest like to the best possible level, I think you would just smash the shit out of it in the last week.
And that brings me to my next, which is, I think now I have I can push back when I say, when you bring up, actually, I don't know if comparing dailies and BBM is quite specific. Well, now it's kind of like, okay, now we're in a daily lens, and you're kind of doing BBM for dailies, basically.
Right.
And the point is, like, the Deion Jackson, I always bring up that knowing on Sunday morning, 3 hours before lock, so 3 weeks before a lock in terms of this contest, like, and knowing that player is going to be set in stone because an injury happened, yada yada, and you smash them, and then for the first 8 weeks you're going to have it. That's going to be more valuable than closing line value. So
agreed.
Okay.
And I mean, and that value, like, that'll adjust in BBM. I don't think it'll adjust here. Like, maybe it'll adjust if, like, say, I don't know, who cares? Damian Pierce got injured, so Devin Singletary now moves up 3 rounds or something like that. I think there's like a really good uniqueness strategy to this, to like just like not taking any running backs that are going to be like commonly owned, and then just trying to hit the extreme volatility of like everyone back here to pop off, right? Because floor in daily fantasy is represented by rushing quarterbacks or pocket passers in double stacks, right? Like that's daily, weekly floor, right? Yep. Where does the extreme value and volatility and chalk come from? 4K RBs, right? $4,000 running backs who he was on the street 2 weeks ago and now he has a starting job today, because all that matters is volume and touches for the running back position. So I kind of think there's merit to just like scrolling down here and taking like 5 of these running backs. I don't know.
That's something I haven't totally thought about at all. So I'm just trying to digest it, you know what I mean, and think it through.
I don't know. It just.
And I did get to week 9. DFS Texas indeed did chop first with two others. So it was a 3-way chop for 26K. And that was the Justin Fields. I don't know if it went off for like the 4th time in a row, but it was a Justin Fields week. And there was no stack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in terms of a daily lineup, what are we're adding basically a 3rd wide receiver and a flex. Is that what we're adding?
Yeah.
To this. Okay, cool.
Yeah, to make it 8. Yeah, this is a good point too. Like, it seems to Galaxy Brain to be like, Darnold outscores Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Lamar. But like, as the season goes on and we play these daily contests, we will see that happen. Now, it might only be on one isolated week, and then that isolated week, maybe it's too much. Maybe it's like that isolated week, you still would prefer Mahomes, but then you need the ancillary pieces from the other team. Yeah, it's crazy just to think through, though. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's I've been just trying to like think through it as well, and just think through like the optimal way, like you said, like I don't think we're gonna figure out what's optimal, and that's been my way, is trying to figure out my brain's optimal and like how I would play it. And it's just it's yeah, I don't know, but it's so much fun. This contest is honestly, like, the fact that you had to do an emergency stream for it proves. So you have a tight end queued up. You're going 3 tight end here.
Yeah, I think I will, but not yet. I think I just want like another like spike weeky guy, like Alec Pierce, who's gonna have a job plus give some ceiling. I took Khalil Shakur like 30 picks ahead of ADP just because we're going stack happy here. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting contest because I think you should formulate your draft plans like long before. Shit, Sammy took one of the things I had written down on my sheet that I've now gotten derailed from because we were chatting and stuff, was that Taysom Hill like just represents like the ultimate skeleton key. Like Taysom Hill is representative of, could be quarterback, could be running back, could be tight end. He's 0 or 40 sometimes, right? Yeah, and that's my bad. We'll put that on me for coming in here and derailing the train of thought. But
I
still got more.
That's what I've noticed is everyone is basically IKB, FADP. You know what I mean?
That's how the daily contests are too, right? Like think about daily baseball, right?
I think that's the way to play it, and I think I agree. It's interesting to see right off the bat with Lundar's comments about Gabe Davis going early. I've seen stuff in our Discord about people doing that and the thoughts. Yeah, this was a really sharp comment. I don't know if he was talking about young.
What about drafting 2 running backs from the same team with your late performing teams? Let one emerge same time as your younger guys start to smash. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the putting the condom on it version of just being like, oh, it's Breece Hall and that's who we need later. But I think it's a really viable way of thinking about it. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point from Blake. I really agree with this. Like RB should be extreme barbell. It should be the elites and the backups and all this wish-wash in the middle that we're kind of like is going to be quasi-owned. I don't know. Because the other thing about the ownership debate is on a given week, Justin Jefferson isn't 100% owned, right? Justin Jefferson is 8% owned. So there's also merit for like, if you think a guy's a good player and he just happens to be bucketed in this area, you probably still want him. I don't know. Because we talk about it with the daily contest where it's like, oh, I can't just keep eating the chalk over and over again. But if the chalk's what you need for that week, you need the chalk, right? Like if Dodgers are what you need today, you need Dodgers. So, yeah, it's very interesting debate, right? I think optimizing each individual roster with one specific goal makes a lot of sense. So, like, the goal of the roster I'm currently making is kind of not as great as I think it could have been, but that's, kind of byproduct of first draft ever and streaming and whatnot. But the thesis of it was anchor Josh Allen gives you outs. You get any of his pass catchers and auxiliary components so that if he goes off in any week, you have a chance any given week as long as you get a little bit of floor from the rest of your roster. Now, I think this is a Nez strategy. If I wanted to label it comparative to like a my risk tolerance strategy, but I think it's a very viable strategy too.
So, okay, so you got a pick coming up here in 2 picks. What are you? What I mean, we're not going to go through the roster quick, but what are you looking at? You're going at a 1,
it's
4,
Dawson Knox.
6, 2. You're on Dawson Knox here. Okay.
Yeah, it's Dawson Knox like 100%.
So, what would you have done different, basically? Do you have anything in mind that you just kind of?
I would have picked an isolated. I would have picked an isolated week to care more about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then are you
and I
gonna do
wouldn't
that?
have and I wouldn't
go
have
ahead, go
mini
ahead.
stacked. I wouldn't have mini stacked 2 divisions. I would have kind of stuck to one.
Okay, so when you do that, are you isolating by 1 week by specifically going in and like knowing the schedule and like correlating like that? Okay, so like
I would
there you go.
I would pick a game. I would pick a game and I would put that game earlier in the season, but it be a divisional game that could also benefit late.
Okay, so like so in a sense, like Texans, Titans.
Yeah, but those ones are late in the season. So when I said that one, I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of sad that you don't want to be optimizing for when we know the least. You want to be optimizing for when we know the most. So like Miami, Buffalo, week 4, like that's kind of a fun little.
I was gonna say, yeah, and Vikes, Packers are not till 8 and 17, so it doesn't really fit the script either.
Yeah. Like, I guess right now we're kind of optimizing for this Buffalo-Jacksonville game and then giving ourselves outs at other divisional opponents. So this roster's kind of like going twofold right now. So we're basically building for a shootout in Buffalo in week 5 versus the Jags. So we have all the Buffalo outs other than Stephon Diggs covered right now. I think this team needs Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson.
Both are obtainable. Who's your preference? Because both are there.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
We'll click on Mostert's name.
Flip a coin. You didn't have time to flip a coin.
Yeah. And now this roster is just like flat ass dead. Like this roster is dead any week that Josh Allen doesn't perform or Josh Allen happens to get injured or something like that. But I think that's the volatility we're looking to embrace.
Because I think what you pointed out earlier is trying to hit every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Like is immediately, or I mean, is immediately looking for just you're going for the mean outcome and you're not going to hit it. And that's the equivalent of if you're having a portfolio of trying to spread it all around in a BR. If you're going up in week 1 BR and all of a sudden you're like, I am only playing 50 entries, but I'm going to try and hit every single combo and spread my ownership around. Like you're most likely, it's going to take that one, but more likely you hone in and you actually like on this specific team, you do what you said. I'm going to go on a week. I'm going to go on week 7. I'm going to make specifically for this build. Yeah, it's definitely going to benefit you more and give you the ceiling that you need, especially in a contest size of, is it near 300,000?
Yeah, it's 271. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is interesting here. Chip presenting the baseball onslaught strategy. The baseball onslaught strategy where you stack every single team and just hope that stack then has the usable weeks sprinkled amongst it. Yeah, it's onslaughts for the NFL. I mean, it's viable. It's viable if you wanted to go ahead and put all the money you want into this. There are certain combos that'll almost never be obtainable, but I do think it's a very viable strategy where you could just name every single team. But then I think those teams need to then pick a lane to optimize for an opponent as well, and it'll probably be divisional, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
It's very interesting.
My wheels are turning right now. There's so many things like getting thrown my way.
Yeah. Steven said something similar here. If he goes elite quarterback or tight end, I'm only grabbing one. I'm not sure where I come out on this yet. I think that will be the line of thinking for most people right now, but I don't know. I do think there's a lot of value in stacking late with players no one else is going to touch. So, like, I think right now you're probably making a really big mistake by picking players in, like, this range. Because you're just looking for, like, mean outcome darts, right?
Especially right now in the draft environment with not knowing anything, like it would just be. I mean, they're most likely these are going to be the quote unquote. I mean, not the dead, but they're going to be dead. You're most likely going to find your players that aren't performing. Where you scroll down, that's where the guys you're going to get that are going to be your closing line value in BBM. But
yeah,
like that's where when you thought about closing line value and you thought it mattered most in like maybe like the early rounds, I thought like in my mind it was early rounds and like the last 3 rounds of what players are actually going to matter and potentially do anything. Like if you can get a guy in your 18th round, 17th round slot to actually give you a usable week, I don't know. Like just trying to think like that's the name you just queued up there. I love it.
Yeah, like this is what I mean. Like super low owned, spike week potential that can just, the Jalen Guyton types, the Chosen Anderson types, the classic better in best ball, like just explode. Like I don't give a shit if you score 8 points each week because like this roster has Christian Kirk and Cooper Kupp scoring 8 points each week. Will that happen every single week? No, of course not. Will you sometimes need some filler? Absolutely. But if I want to shoot the moon for like who's the contrarian unknown like component, like who's the Mac Hollins of this team? Like think back to the week that Nez won the 12 team contest. It's like who is the Mac Hollins that is literally like a fraction of a percent owned, who all of a sudden gives you 80 yards and 2 touchdowns on 2 catches, right? Like who is that? Well, everyone in this contest is going to own MVS, right? Like he's going to be 8% owned because he's going to be drafted at 100% frequency. Well, let's find like the extreme outlier of that we know is in a role that we know correlates with the team in which we're building as like, divisional correlation, a matchup we target as a whatever. Like tell that story, tell that narrative. This contest, I love it because it's the ultimate picture this, right?
I was just going to say, right. I was
picture this.
If you didn't have 3 tight ends already, Noah Gray would be walking his way like Conor McGregor to this team.
Like Noah Gray's a great one because like if you're making a bet that he's 1 injury away from being like the most unique piece in this contest and you get 8 touchdowns out of him that nobody else is scoring, right?
Yeah, that man. Yeah, this contest has just put I mean, I'm just interested to see the whole community as a whole and how they consume this contest because like, yeah, it's the your combo hybrid of daily and best ball, and it's the perfect match. And you're talking about earlier like your DFS. Yeah, this is exactly the type of best ball tournament that I'm going to be like entering. And I know it's like it's complete variance, like you said, like it's the variance of the variance when it comes to this style of contest. I've seen this done. I've seen some screenshots of this. What are your thoughts on here, John?
I like it. Love it. Yeah, we talked about it off the top there. But if it becomes the standardized meta, then where's the edge in it? But I mean, as of right now, it seems smart.
Do you think this is more for like a casual Joe Schmo? If they were to see this, would they be more apt to enter, regardless of price point, a contest like this where you can win each week and they see this, or they see something like BBM where it's like, but it's still the top prize. You know what I mean? Like, cause I wondered, like, this is what I was like, is this the thing to really get my friends into it? Like into the underdog and stuff like that? Like I've just been wondering.
I think this contest works on a couple levels. I think it's very intelligent from the company standpoint to keep liquidity moving on the platform, to keep people coming back to the platform, to check their app, to check if they see it. So, that money then gets, reutilized on the platform, even if it's $10. Well, that $10 that you get kicked back in week 6, well, it's probably just going back into a pick'em or 2 daily drafts or whatever. So I think it's very intelligent from that standpoint. And then from the user side, I think it's incredible for the sweat equity of it, which was something that like Hayden teased us with when we said, when he was on the show when BBM dropped, he teased us with like, oh, there's going to be like a reason to sweat this year, reason to sweat. And we thought that our initial reason to sweat was the fact that the BBM had the prize pool for the in-season. Well, now they dropped this contest too. And it's like, oh, damn, like, now we got multiple reasons to come back. yeah, long-winded way of answering yes. I think if I'm a recreational player, I love the idea of doing this where it also feels like I'm going to have like a pretty good opportunity to get my money back. Now, if you ran a couple like ROI and EV calcs on this, it might not be that clean, but like 2.8% of the player pool gets money every single week. And if you cash one roster over the course of the entire year, you get basically the entirety of your buy-in back, right? Like if you min cash it, it's $10. You get 66% of your buy-in back if you've come in the top 2.8%, 1 out of 17 weeks. So I think to the average recreational user, that looks like, yeah, man, I got a chance I'm not throwing this money away. Whereas I think sometimes they think with the puppy, with BBM, with whatever, oh, if I'm just playing one bullet, what's the point, right? I'm just throwing it away.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love it. I just wanted to hear you're the one that stepped on here with your thoughts. So yeah, just wanted to hear that. That's perfect. So what are your thoughts on this last pick? We got 5 picks. Let's round up your roster here. So you're going solo Josh Allen with 5-8-3 with an anchor Derrick Henry and then Cooper Kupp. Oof. This team is like Chip said at the beginning, this team is hot. How much for equity?
I don't know.
No, you got 2 suitors.
I don't sell my teams like Chip. I really like what Eagles is doing here too. I'm just looking beside it, and Samaje Perine a really interesting pick. Don't know if he'll have a job. Scores points early. I don't know. Following the money feels.
Blake says Mo Ibrahim, please.
Oh, he loves him.
Man. I know.
He says he's gonna win somebody $20K. How
about that perfect game comment though, Blake? Huh? For if you didn't know,
I think it's wide receiver, and I think it's Bills, and I think it's like someone nobody else is gonna touch, like Hardy or Justin Shorter.
When it's
our guy, baby.
When it's week 9, or what week are you optimizing for?
5.
When it's week 5, Stephon Diggs has been holding out for now 5 straight weeks. Deontay Hardy's been cut, the guy that you just went over, and it's Justin Shorter and Gabe Davis time because all of a sudden Dalton just.
Let me remind everyone.
Picture this.
Let me remind everyone what Justin Shorter looks like. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look at that. Look at that. That looks like Kyle Pitts to me. That is a football
in rookie
player.
Season, Kyle Pitts? Please tell me we get the one usable week.
Yeah.
Is week 5 the one usable week?
Hopefully. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I want to take a little look at what some people did in this room. If you're in the chat and you were in this draft, let me know, and I'll maybe leave a couple comments to like tell me what your thought process was. Because with BBM, it's really obvious. Like BBM, it's like, oh, okay, there's the 17 correlation, and that's what you were thinking through. First things first, I just want to look at Eagles draft before my own even, because I really like this elite tight end with Mahomes. That's something that we talked about so much in those daily contests of like the bully tight end. It just gives you a path every single week to like crazy spikes, plus the Mahomes correlation. And then he only did the 1 QB as well, and then found some backstack stuff there. And then he stacked 2 Kansas City, and then he stacked a bunch of Denver. Denver week 17, right? So, no, not week 17. Denver plays the Chargers in week 17.
Chargers, yeah.
Let's see. Kansas City, Denver, not till week 6. So optimizing for 6 and 8. They play each other like in a close window. I think there's another little micro edge there in thinking through who plays some of these early games versus like multiple times in good conditions, right? Like early in the year.
Like who's playing the Vikings in the Dome? Like who's potentially playing the Falcons? Right. Who's potentially playing, I mean, I don't know the Lions, but like these, what we view bad defenses twice, like is, I think that's 100%.
Because going back to the point of like the most we know is in the front of the year, right? Like for all we know, like this at Cleveland game, I don't even know whose schedule it is, but like at Cleveland in week 15, for all we know, that could be a shootout because, you know, Denzel Ward's hurt and nobody else is playing defense. Myles Garrett's done for the year and whatever. Like this is a cakewalk game now for a different team because we don't know that. But what we do know in like weeks 1, 2, and 3, especially as we get later in the draft window, is like we will kind of know something. Now we learn the most in like the first 3 weeks, and then we start to learn, you know, hey, this is a funnel defense. This defense is doing something different this year than they were last year, and then we can sort of piece together matchups later in the year. But I think kind of like if you're going to pick weeks to optimize for, I would pick divisional ones so that you get double bubble in terms of divisional and you get them early in the year. So I guess that Buffalo-Miami one works because we kind of accidentally came across that one. The Baltimore-Cleveland one there. Yeah. Anyways, looking for a couple divisional matchups and a couple like matchups in quotations to open the year. Right?
We got Indianapolis. We got Indianapolis, Jacksonville, week 1 and week 5.
There you go.
So I don't know what that's worth because I don't know, but I mean, I'm just trying to like find these right away, like you said, quote unquote cakewalks. We don't know what they like what they technically are by now, but yeah.
And that's an easy one to optimize for too, because Jonathan Taylor is always there in the second round, and then Christian Kirk in the third, and then you could take Trevor Lawrence 5th, push him up a little bit, and then you could easily optimize for 2 weeks there with those two teams of like, hey, that's the highest scoring game on the slate. I have a 3-man stack of 1 and a double run back on the other side. Another one that you can kind of look for is like strength of schedule early, right? Like look at Baltimore. They get Houston, they get Cincy, like that just feels like shootout vibes. You get Indy, and then you get Cleveland with a divisional one. So like, hey, maybe this is a good, or like not good as in terms of winnable, but like, hey, maybe this is like early in the season schedule, looks like good fun games, and you get a divisional one.
And I know you talked about earlier or later in the season, like, you know, it's tougher to optimize for. I know I saw it's only 17 weeks. So that week 18, just throw that out the window. It's not even I don't know if you mentioned that, but that's not even basically in terms of this contest. And I mean, obviously in every other one, just throw that out because that was we were looking at that. Is it 18 weeks? But yeah, no, just 17. So.
More like Justin Swoller. Love it. Let's see what else we got here. Paid. We had to get it out, man. We had to get one stream in before we went away. Just had to get some last minute thoughts out here. Interesting that Matt also points out that Eagles team took Evans and Sutton, like just wild cards in terms of like trade equity. I'm not sure if that factored in or if that was just kind of like veterans who will score points and correlate. What's Randy saying here? Trying to draft AFC South and NFC South, so weather affecting outdoor totals later. Yeah, I mean that's very sharp. I think that's smart. Targeting the dome games, targeting the non-weather games. But I do think there is like a pretty nice edge in terms of optimizing earlier in the year, right? Like just because we'll know more then. I got a rip here, Doomy, but I'm going to look at a couple things that I wrote down here. Yeah, I think similar player types and similar builds. So if you're optimizing for later in the year, you know, rookies and secondary running backs, I think clicking on some really gross names will get you a long way, because I think people will be very apprehensive to do it. And I think that's how you separate. You just treat the contest results as like binary outcomes. We're not playing for min caches. We're just trying to win a week. And the week that I want to win is the week when it's Chosen Anderson and Justin Shorter. And it sounds ridiculous because they might put up zeros all year long. They might put up zeros. One of them might get cut. I don't know. We're drafting this thing in June, but like just doing something like that where what we did the baseball show today. We talked all morning about, hey, we liked a couple of these spots. We liked this and that because of the weather conditions. What actually happens? Well, Spencer Torkelson hits 2 home runs and he's the guy you need, right? So, I mean, that's how easy it is. Like, oh yeah, nobody was clicking Spencer Torkelson's name. Even when I was like, hey, your swap options. Oh, I like Ibanez and
Jake
Rogers. And I mean, They both had really nice games and got home, but not to the level in which Torkelson did. So like, we're just looking for that like one-off huge spike week that nobody else encapsulates because, raw points moving you up leaderboards. Yeah, I love this contest. I commend Underdog for trying it, and big shouts to Hayden for coming up with the concept and actually building it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Last thing I'll say is we got 28 here, which we had 31. Truly might be a record at one point for having on the Unhinged stream. If you haven't already, the reason why I specifically will say this now, and we're gonna get an influx of everyone leaving, just hit that sub to this channel. We are doing content here often. We're doing content for Pub Cup. We're gonna be doing content, whether it be just guys like John hopping on to rip and just talk through stuff. You don't want to miss it. So just hit that notification bell. Go to all. You'll know exactly when we go live. It won't bother you for anything else. So if you want to know when we go live on here, and you're not following us on Twitter and you're not in the Discord getting notifications, boom. Easiest way.
Perfect.
Appreciate you all. Yeah.
Have
a great Friday night.
Yeah. Thursday night. Yeah, I like this one.
Basically Friday night.
Giants cakewalk schedule. I mean, Danny Dimes, rushing floor. That's what we're looking for in DFS on week-to-week basis is like those guys who can break the slate with their legs, right? And touchdowns mean so much more on Underdog than they do on redacted platforms. So, I mean, finding touchdowns that score from your quarterback, like via their legs, and then scoring your, differentiation points through the other players makes a lot of sense to me. Like that makes a lot of sense. And it gives yourself outs to winning multiple weeks by having quarterbacks that run and quarterbacks that score points on the ground. I will be drafting a lot of Justin Fields, a lot of Danny Dimes, a lot of Jalen Hurts. Vanilla Vic is the person you need, right? Chip, this is perfect. If you just couple all these running backs together where people will have 1 or 2 on their roster, put 6 of them on the same roster. It seems so good.
That is a ploy just to get Deneric Prince hype. That's all it is. He put those other running backs in there, and it was just like, oh, Deneric Prince. That's all he really wanted to put out there. Yeah. Just letting everyone.
Oh man, Blake, I guarantee you, I start 3. We don't do over under here. We do higher or lower, and I guarantee the line is at 2.5. USA chance on 4th of July in Hawaii.
That's over.
That's the line.
That's a higher lock. It's not even close. I would have put the higher lower at near 4, at near 3.5. Like 4 would be pushing it because I think the money would be hitting that higher quite a bit. Like we don't know what John's in store for anyway. It's going to Hawaii. Come on, people.
Chill vibes. Okay, so we ended up with a 1.593. Not financial advice. Don't try this at home, but I think this is like a 6.5 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, and it's kind of in the right direction. Is kind of where my mind goes. Anyways, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, David Pierce, James Cook, Dame Harris. I have 2 Dames. That's why I was confused. Dame Harris, Raheem Mostert.
And none of them are Lillard.
Cup, Kirk, Davis, Taekwon, Shakir, Alec Pierce, better in best ball, Robert Woods, correlation, Chosen Anderson, bring back on week 5. Let's go. Justin Shorter, you're going to be glad you saw his 6-pack abs there. And then nice floor at tight end, all correlated, other than Kittle. Kittle, Ingram, Knox. Fun first one. Love this contest. Love this structure. Yeah. All right. Let's call it a day.
Perfect.
All right. Let's do it. Okay. We will be back next week sometime. I don't know. Have a good weekend.
Wednesday,
Have
Friday,
really nice...
who knows?
Yeah, Wednesday will be Pup Cup for sure. Anyways, thank you all for showing up short notice. Really appreciate you guys being here. A lot of fun to let us do this and love hearing you guys' ideas. Let's keep this discourse going in the Discord and on Twitter over the weekend because I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Really sharp community. On behalf of myself and Neumy, thank you for joining. Everybody's favorite time on the show. The end. Peace.